But in other movies, he's very much the protector
Yeah.
of Japan and Tokyo against other kaiju monsters, against invading aliens, or whatever it might be. And I love that kind of push and pull and that evolving relationship, and the fact that the filmmakers are never too beholden to a specific lore or
Yeah.
mythology. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is James, joined as ever by my good friend Steve, and this episode we are talking Godzilla Minus One.
Hey, but before we talk Godzilla Minus One, it'd be a great favor to us if you went ahead and hit that subscribe button. We are almost at 2,000 subscribers. You could help us get over that hill. Be much appreciated. James?
Okay, so Godzilla Minus One, it is the 37th Godzilla movie.
Crikey, that's a lot
Yeah,
of Godzilla.
that is a lot of Godzilla. It's
Gojira.
the
Gojira.
Gojira. Well, this is the thing. It's the 33rd Japanese one, but there are also four official American ones
Mhm.
that are counted within the canon. And there's another one coming in a couple of months' time. Godzilla X Kong
Yeah.
New Empire or
Yeah.
whatever. I'm not sure how you say that, if it's, but that's a conversation
Mhm.
for another day. So this is something a little bit different. I mean, this franchise has always been known to sort of reinvent the mythology as it goes along, reinvent the origins even. And here we are set prior to the events of the first movie, which it acknowledges, but in different ways. It's 1945. It's the end of the Second World War, and we are introduced to a young kamikaze pilot who has lost his bottle, failed to sort of live up to his duties and to kill himself in battle, and he's kind of chickened out, goes home and tries to start a family before he is then drawn into a whole new war against the mighty Gojira. So, Steve.
That kamikaze pilot, by the end of this movie, James, I was thinking, this guy's got more lives than a cat. This guy cannot be killed. I said, I watched the film with my grown son, and I just said, I would go into battle with that guy anytime because he cannot be killed.
Yes, yeah, he is pretty resilient. If you've got him by your side, then you're probably going to be okay. That is for sure.
Yeah. But to come back to Godzilla itself, there's something ever since I was a little kid that just loves this monster stepping on things and destroying stuff. And this film, it just, like you said, it's 36 films at this point, but it just never gets old. This film was a delight. By the end of it, I'm thinking this just reinvigorated my love for Gojira.
Oh, absolutely. I've always been an absolute sucker for Godzilla shirt.
Yeah.
Um, and if I'm completely honest, I don't think I've seen every single one, but I've seen the vast majority, and I think I now own all of them. So I've been
Mhm.
sort of like filling in the holes recently.
Yeah.
I just watched sort of Godzilla versus Space Godzilla just over this weekend. Uh, and I love it. The enduring affection that Japan has for this creature that has become one of sort of the enduring pop culture
Yeah.
icons. Godzilla is their Elvis, really.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That no
It's
one really comes close to being as recognizable and beloved, despite the fact that over the years and across all of these movies, the relationship between Japan and Godzilla changes all the time.
yeah.
Sometimes he is just this kind of force of nature, this threat, which he kind of is in this film to a
Yes.
large degree.
Yeah.
He's basically just, a
He's malevolent.
personification.
He's very
Yeah,
malevolent in this one.
he is. But in other movies, he's very much the protector
Yeah.
of Japan and Tokyo against other kaiju monsters, against invading aliens, or whatever it might be. And I love that kind of push and pull and that evolving relationship, and the fact that the filmmakers are never too beholden to a specific lore or
Yeah.
mythology
Yeah.
or history or canon. The canon is whatever they feel like doing really that
Right.
time,
Right.
and you just have to run with it. And it's the encouraging sense of enduring fun and creativity, and you have to sort of say to some degree silliness of a
Yeah.
lot of the movies
Yeah.
that keeps it fresh in some regard,
Yeah.
even when you have a movie like this, which is probably one of the more serious attempts to ground it
Yeah.
in a recognizable reality.
You know, James, growing up, when I was a young boy, we used to have on, I think it was Channel 7, one of the network stations. They used to run a movie after school every day, Monday through Friday. It would come on at 4 o'clock. And often they would cut them. It would only run for a hour and a half. It'd go from 4 to 5:30 because then the 5:30 news came on. And so
Oh
I
wow.
found out later how much these films got cut to get them into a 90-minute segment complete with commercials.
So
But
maybe
like
an hour long total, really.
that's it. When you finally watch the real version years later, go, oh, that happened in this, you know. But it was called. But once or twice a year, they would do Monster Week, and that was the week we all looked forward to. Monday was Godzilla. Tuesday was Son of Godzilla. And then the next three, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they would swap out different weeks. But it was the highlight. We would race home from school. We would get to the schoolyard the next day and talk about Gamera or Godzilla or, you know, and yeah, so ever since I was a little boy, these
Mm.
films have had a very strong part of my upbringing.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that I was overly exposed to at a very young age. And that's a combination of reasons, but I was just never kind of really sat in front of the TV for many, many hours or anything like that when I was very young. And it was probably not until I was a teenager when I became aware that, late night on Channel 4 or something like that, they would play one of these really sort of wacky
Mhm.
60s or 70s Japanese sci-fi movies, albeit they'd probably play the dubbed version.
Yeah,
So it was only sort of really much later that I sort of got into them. But then I started sort of really sort of devouring them and what have
yeah,
you. And
yeah.
certainly in the last sort of 20 years or so since I've been living in Asia and really
Mhm.
sort of immersed myself in that, I've gravitated far more than to Hong Kong movies, really. I've gravitated towards Japanese movies and particularly
Mhm.
this kind of thing. So I thought just to lay out the plot briefly and what
Mhm.
have you. Um, the story, it follows Koichi Shikishima, played by Ryunosuke Kamiki. He is a disgraced kamikaze pilot.
Mhm.
He is one of many of these sort of young individuals who was brainwashed by the Japanese Empire into, being convinced that the ultimate sacrifice is to give your life to the cause, a cause that the country is becoming increasingly sort of jaded
Mhm.
and less invested in as time goes on. And the film really kind of like taps into a lot of that. It's essentially a movie about Japan wrestling with the aftermath of the war as
Mhm.
much as anything else. I mean, it's directed by Takeshi Yamazaki, a name I always remember because I went to school with a kid called Takeshi Yamazaki, and I checked it's not him, but
Be great if it
but
was.
he has become sort of incredibly prominent Japanese filmmaker. He tends to make far more sort of grounded dramas, but with uses a lot of visual effects. He also did a movie called The Eternal Zero, which is a movie about kamikaze pilots, which I actually is I found pretty good, pretty sort of stirring stuff, just about these young guys who sort of are willing to lay down their life and to perceive that as the greatest honor that you
Mhm.
could. Uh, and so when we meet Shikishima at the beginning of the movie, he's pretending that his fighter plane, that his
Mhm.
Zero fighter
Yes. Yeah.
is malfunctioning and lands on this sort of little island in the middle of nowhere, where the engineers there very quickly realize there's nothing wrong with this. You've just chickened
Mhm.
out, haven't you?
Yeah.
But then that's cut short by a Godzilla attack. Um, and then, and then eventually he gets back and he finds Tokyo has been decimated. His next door neighbor, played by the great Sakura Ando, who we will recognize from Shoplifters and movie like that. She wastes no time in pointing her finger at him and saying, "This is all your fault. It's people like you who didn't do your duty, who didn't fight to the bitter end, are the reason why my family is dead, your family is dead, why Tokyo has been decimated like this." And so he is. It does a great job, I think, of placing him within a kind of a recognizable, realistic historical context, and also evoking sort of the emotional sentiment of the period
Yeah. Yeah.
before it then just changes focus and goes, yeah, but we're going to be a Godzilla movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's.
and I think that that's what Yamazaki, the director, brings to it. Is it's
Mhm.
that balance of like human drama, melodrama, even ramping it all up
Yeah.
to 11, but then with sort of really audacious sort of special effects as and when.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons the film's getting the accolades that has is because it's more than just a Godzilla movie. And there's a lot of critique right now about the big Hollywood blockbuster, the
Mm.
250 million dollar films that are just tanking because people are saying they're just not good stories. You can have a gazillion, top actors in it and special effects, but if there's not a good story, then what the hell are we watching this for? And what they've done on a budget of $15 million
Yeah.
is they had special effects that were fantastic. They had a dramatic story. And incidental note is the box office results came out in America this week. For the first time ever, Japanese movies hold two of the top spots. Boy and His Heron is number one, and
Yeah.
Godzilla Minus One is, I think, fourth. I think third or
Yeah,
fourth.
because it came out like 2 weeks ago.
Two
Yeah.
weeks
Yeah.
ago, but it's held its own, and rather than drop dramatically, actually word of mouth is propelling it upward.
It's nuts. I think it's made $25 million in the US already. And it's apparently it's $15 million budget. When the director was said, hey, was asked, how did you make the movie on $15 million? He said, I wish it was that much. So, and that has in some corners raised questions about working standards in the
Labor
Japanese.
laws. Yes,
Yeah,
no, there is the
which is
16-hour
how did they make it
days.
so
Yeah,
cheap? Yes,
yeah.
yeah. Which I know to be true to some degree.
We live
There
in
aren't any
Asia,
unions to protect them.
and
Yeah.
we live in Asia. It's a different way of seeing humanity sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely, and certainly a certain different work ethic for sure.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I think the special effects are as good as anything out there on the big screen right now, and I believe Godzilla Minus One has sort of made it to the long list of potential nominees for the Oscar for visual effects. So it'd be
Mhm.
really great to see it see it qualify. See it. I mean, often you don't even get five nominees in that category. They kind of do it for
Yeah,
three.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it'd be interesting to see if it can compete with like Oppenheimer and
yeah.
some of the other big ones.
One of
Something
the
like Mission Impossible is probably going to get up there.
One of the things I enjoyed about this film is I think the director said he drew some inspiration from Jaws. And there was a moment where I thought they were going to lean into the orca and the
Yeah.
three guys on the boat just as much. And I thought it was so gripping. Like my heart was racing when you got Godzilla under the water, just like a shark, and you just don't know where he's going to pop up at. And just the suspense that was built up. There were so many aspects of this film that was just great storytelling. It's not that they particularly broke new ground. It's just
Mm.
he kind of picked and chose from other great films, and he put together his own little concoction. And you know what? God bless him, because it was fun.
Yeah, I think I mean the Jaws references, are right there, and he's
Yeah,
acknowledged them, but they're great, and
that's it. And it's a homage.
yeah, I mean, just to contextualize it, so Shikishima is back in Japan, and he's kind of feeling guilty about the fact that he, hasn't played his part. So he volunteers to be part of this mine-sweeping crew
Yeah,
who go out into the oceans to kind of find unexploded sea mines and explode them. And it's like a four-man crew on a very, very similar looking boat to the Orca.
wooden boat. Yeah,
Yeah, wooden boat, because there's something about sort of because the mines are magnetic,
yeah,
and it's on there that they encounter Godzilla in the ocean, and there is an entire sequence in the first half of the movie that brilliantly evokes Jaws, even down to the fact where they get a mine stuck in
yeah,
Godzilla's
yeah,
mouth, and they have to kind of blow it up like that, and it's a great way of showing sort of the size and the scale of Godzilla. It's a great way of introducing a number of characters, one of whom in particular will become very important later. He's revealed to be this kind of scientific mastermind who actually
yeah.
devises the whole plan for the second half of the movie. But also, what it shows you is how Godzilla can regenerate
Hmm.
as well, because they got to blow half his face off, and then
Yeah,
immediately it starts kind of growing back, and you're
yeah,
like, okay, not
yeah.
only is he sort of 40 stories tall, but he can also sort of grow back his own head. So
Yes.
we have our work cut out. So it just highlights the fact that this is sort of an unstoppable, insurmountable, immovable object
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you're gonna essentially need the entire nation to rally behind you
yeah,
if you're
yeah.
gonna beat him.
Yeah. And I loved how the governments are not going to help us with this. There's a real social commentary here. We cannot rely on government help. It's going to take average citizens doing their duty that is going to save our country or save the world. And obviously, there's a message being put front and center there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've seen some criticism about how this has been interpreted, with some people sort of saying that it's pro-military, and I felt that it was
I
kind of the
didn't feel that.
opposite.
Yeah, I didn't
I
feel
felt it
that.
was kind of like pro-humanity. It was a very sort of
Yeah.
humanistic message. It was like, we as a community, we as a civilization, we as a country, as a nation,
Yeah.
we need to um sort of
Do this
what's the
together.
phrase?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have been fractured and decimated by the war. There are a number of different ideologies that have split us apart. Um, there's a very sort of strong anti-government, anti-authority message there. But it's like, yes, just ordinary people. We have to come together. We have to work through these troubles as one. We have to come back together and reunite as a nation if we are to get through this. And I don't think what that means is we need to, take up arms again, or you need to enlist, and you need to. It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about just recognizing that your fellow man needs your
Hmm.
support,
Yeah.
and that united we are stronger, and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But yeah, some people have really taken against it, said it's really sort of gung-ho and pro-military. And obviously Japan has a very sort of shall we say, muddied history with its own military, of course, because since World War II it hasn't really been allowed one. It's allowed a defense force and all this kind of stuff. So it's it's a touchy subject in some quarters. But
Yeah.
I didn't feel that this was jingoistic as much as kind
No,
of just
no.
just hopeful, really.
Yeah, no, no, I didn't feel it jingoistic at all. You know what I did enjoy is obviously the Gojira character has had various interpretations of how
Mm,
he's portrayed from the 1995 disaster, where he was more reptilian and fast,
mm,
as opposed to, I really enjoyed this version of Godzilla because he was a bit more lumbering. He was
yeah.
thicker. He was heavy. There was weight to him. And I tell you what, I loved his atomic breath when his scales start lighting up and they start coming out one at a time. That whole scene just really reinforces the sheer power that weapon is, and that it even takes time to regenerate. That's how
Yeah.
powerful it is. I think in times past, it's been used in different ways and very inconsistently. This one, basically, he's firing a nuclear reactor at things, and I love the result.
Yeah, oh, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, just the way that it kind of primes itself,
Yeah,
builds to a crescendo. You're
yeah.
like, oh boy, here we
Oh
go.
shit, here it comes.
And it's more than just breath. It's like an
Yeah,
entire sort of gamma ray kind of
yeah,
thing. I love all of that, and clearly the filmmakers, really
yeah.
relishing sort of the opportunity to sort of do that with
That's where
today's
a
kind
lot
of
of
state
that
of the art.
that's where a lot of that 15 million went, was that.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. A lot of that. It's because I mean, there are obviously great callbacks to the original Ishiro Honda
yeah,
1954 movie.
yeah.
Not really in the first act, but for me, it kicks in when the music kicks in, and it kicks
Hmm.
in when Godzilla, after he has regenerated and escaped the boat, he zeroes in on Tokyo and he goes to hit downtown Ginza, which is where Shikishima's sort of not wife
Yeah,
is work Noriko, I think.
yeah,
And it's where she has got a job, because she's like, well, if you're not going to marry me, I better get out there and join the
yeah,
workforce. And you're like, he's still wrestling with some very deep set shame
yeah,
and
yeah,
insecurities that he fortunately eventually kind of gets over. And as soon as you see Godzilla stomping through the streets of Ginza and attacking the trains and the train lines, I'll have to go back and watch the original, but it feels like almost kind of shot for shot or step by step um, evocation of the initial sort of destruction of
yeah,
Tokyo scenes from the 54 one. And you've got the great sort of boom, boom, boom score coming in again. I was just like, oh yeah, okay, here
yeah,
we go. For me, yeah, that was my nostalgia firing the same way that
yeah,
Godzilla's
yeah,
atomic breath. I was just like, dun, 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 dun. Okay, this
yeah,
is this guy knows exactly what he's doing.
yeah. He's hitting the right notes for sure.
one other thing, because there's one other movie that he has noted as a reference point, and it's interesting. It's one of the more sort of outrageous, outlandish of the more recent Godzilla movies. Um, because they fall quite nicely into sort of four sections. There's the Showa era, which goes from 54 up to about sort of mid 70s. It's like that initial 15 movies with like the real rubber suits and stuff
Hmm.
and and all of that, which become increasingly sort of silly and family friendly as they go on. But there are some really good ones in there with some good messages about sort of the environment and things like that. And then there's the Heisei period, which I'm coming round to the idea that they might be the best ones
Hmm.
because they had obviously more money, better special effects. So they were in the 80s and the 90s, and they ran pretty much right up to the millennium, and then there's
Hmm.
the millennium era, and then we're into the Reiwa era. With all of these periods, apart from millennium, they're all named after the different imperial
Hmm.
eras in Japan. Um, and so this is officially, I think, the fifth movie in the Reiwa era. Although after Shin Godzilla in 2016, the other three are all animated. They're all on Netflix, actually. I've only watched one of them. They're kind of futuristic anime stories, but they're kind
Hmm.
of the one I saw was kind of interesting, and apparently they're pretty good, pretty solid trilogy. So suffice to say, one of the Millennium ones has the rather clunky title Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah: Giant Monsters All Out Attack. And you're kind of like, okay.
That's a
Uh,
mouthful.
it is, and it's one of many films in which they kind of rewrite the origins of Godzilla, and it's where three of the other kaiju monsters have to team up to defend Tokyo against Godzilla. It often happens the other way around,
Yeah.
where he teams up with some other monsters to defend against something else. But Godzilla is the one causing carnage here, and he is powered not by nuclear testing at Bikini Atoll or anything like that, but by um, the sort of the haunting dissatisfaction of Japan's war dead. Soldiers, like the spirits of soldiers who died in the war, have risen from the grave and are literally feeding them and embodying Godzilla in order to do this, and they're using him as a vessel
Right.
to meet their revenge upon him. And there are elements of that play into this, that it's all that in some slightly less direct way, Godzilla is kind of this representation or this manifestation of this kind of post-war frustration with
Yeah.
the system, if you
Yeah.
like. And I thought, okay, well, that's a big swing, but
Yeah.
uh, but
Yeah.
but 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 well done. It all
Yeah.
it all just adds to the mix and sweetens the pot
Yeah.
of what I thought was a great addition to the franchise.
Well, James, what are we going to use as an instrument of measure for Godzilla minus one?
Okay,
Death, atomic rays, atomic breath.
or what's that device that they create in order to essentially give Godzilla the bends?
Oh
But
yeah,
then
the
but then it doesn't work. How
levitation.
about
Yeah, yeah.
how about the great palm olive branch that is a kamikaze pilot ejector seat?
Oh yes.
You
How
know,
many kamikaze ejector seats?
so a zero fighter ejector seat, which is the ultimate olive branch of forgiveness that
Hmm.
that what's his name, Tachibana, the engineer,
Yeah,
could give Shikishima a
yeah.
way out, an honorable way out.
An honorable way out. Well, how many kamikaze ejector seats are you going to give Godzilla minus one?
I really enjoyed it. I was really impressed by how well it works as a Godzilla movie, but also how substantive it was. How
Hmm.
much else is in there. This works as a kind of World War II movie, as a period drama, as a a post-war melodrama, and all these other elements that really came together, sort of really, really, really well. I'm hesitant to give it the full five, and I don't do half, so I'm going to give it four.
Hmm.
Zero fighter ejector seats out of five, but I got a feeling it might grow on me in time. I can
Yeah.
already feel it kind of manifesting and regenerating from the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, James
Uh,
is clever and oh so sly. Insert. Yeah.
so we shall see. I think it's a film I'm going to end up going back to and watching again and again with much
Yeah.
relish.
James, I have nothing much more to add to what you just said because I'm going to give it four ejector seats as well. This is a great movie. Enjoyed it so much. just watching Godzilla be Godzilla, tearing apart ships, walking on people, destroying buildings as people flee, and then add the melodrama, add the kamikaze backstory. Just it hit all the right buttons for me, and I think this is one of the reasons word of mouth has really been pushing this film, because I think film goers, we want a nice FX story or FX film with a good story, and Godzilla Minus One delivers.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so what did you think of Godzilla Minus One? Have you had the opportunity to see it in your territory? What did you think? How does it stand up to the rest of the franchise? How does it stand up as all of the other things that it attempts to be as well? Let us know in the comments. We would love to hear from you.
Till next episode.
You ought to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be. You're